All right. Hello everyone, and welcome back to the Kohi live game development stream. For those of you who are tuning in on YouTube, welcome back to the Kohi Game Engine series. In this case, we are going to be continuing our live game engine development here. And today what we're going to do is a little bit more prep work for some hot reloading. And today the goal is basically to take our newly created render plugin, and we need to basically remove all of the static data from that to facilitate the live or hot reloading rather. So basically what that means is that we cannot have any static data anywhere, which we do thankfully not have a lot of it within this. Most of it is actually elsewhere. So if we take a look, we just have a look here at all of the uses of the word static. There are a bunch of them all over the place. Ones that we can skip are these external libraries, so like stbimage and stbTrueType, we can remove those. But we do have a number of additional matches here. So we have, for example, in the game keybinds, in the game itself, so we'll need to resolve some of these things. The Vulkan backend C, which is sort of our main place for our Vulkan plugin. This is the main one we're going to be addressing today. And the way that we're going to do this is, at least for the plugin itself, we are going to be passing through a Vulkan context object to that, so that we don't have to have that as a static piece of data. Okay, so what we have here, the way that we're going to handle this is we already have our render plugin being passed in for some of these methods up here. We also have passed our Vulkan allocators and all that. We have our plugin being created here, and then of course the plugin is also created or passed through rather when we shut down. So what we're going to do is we are going to attach this Vulkan context as part of the plugin, and we'll just allocate some memory while we're standing up the plugin. And then we're going to edit all of the entry points to also take that plugin. And then we'll just go ahead and do a cold cast to extract that out of the actual data that we pass in. Okay? So I hope that all makes sense. And so without further ado, let's go ahead and jump into it. Now before I do jump into it, I just want to mention real quickly that I do treat this as an interactive stream. So if you guys have any questions or comments or concerns along the way, feel free to pop them in the chat, and I will answer them as soon as I see them to the best of my ability. Okay, so with that, let me go ahead and have a look at getting rid of this static. And actually, before we do that, we should probably take a look at the render plugin. So this is actually probably the first thing that we should change. We should probably change this on the top level first, and then go ahead and re-implement it on the back end. So this is how the front end communicates with our new render plugin, aka the backend. So you can see here that most of these do not take any sort of input whatsoever in terms of the actual plugin itself. Not until all the way here at the top. So we have a number of these functions that we're basically going to have to update in order to fix this. So since this is sort of the interface level, I think it makes sense to go ahead and start here. So we're going to pass the backend here, and I believe we've forward declared it here because we're basically passing in the same struct here, so we're going to have to do this all the way down. So shutdown already has it, resized already has it, interestingly enough, begin frame and render plugin, or end frame rather, already have it, but everything from that point on does not have it. So I think what I'll do is I'll go ahead and add this in here and then go back and just update the comments real quick. So we'll add that there. I'm not going to worry about formatting right now because the auto formatter should take care of it for us. So I'm just going to go through here, and we're basically just going to pass it as the first argument to every function here. And this allows us to get around having to have that static data. And eventually this is basically the same pattern we're going to follow for a lot of our systems, except for the ones that we don't want to have to pass the state around. And we'll handle those in a little bit better of a manner here once we've actually completed this change. But the goal is basically to get rid of all the static data. I initially had a different direction that I was going to go with this, and that was sort of why I chose to do the static data in the first place, but I got thinking about it, and once I came up with the idea for the plugin, I'm like, well, this is probably a time to start thinking about hot reloading of libraries, and I think at this point it's safe enough to go ahead and convert it to this. So with that, we've got just a little bit of minor refactoring to do here, and we'll be back up and running in no time. So that's the goal tonight, and I'm just going to go through here and finish putting these all in. And the nice part about this is I'm not going to have to worry about the assignment of these because that's just going to be reflected in sort of the backend functions as well. So I'll have to place these, I'll have to make updates to sort of all of the backend functions as well, which sucks a little bit, but you know, sometimes hindsight is 20/20. So let's see, let's go ahead and we should probably also rename all of these from being called backend to plugin. So I'm actually just going to do a quick find and replace on this. And I'm just going to call this plugin. So that way it's at least named something that kind of makes sense. And I'm also going to find and replace on this comment. And we're going to say a pointer to the let's call it the renderer plugin interface, and we'll just swap those out as well. And now I can just copy this parameter and put it in anywhere where it's missing. So I believe that's going to start right here. In fact, I should just be able to do it like this. So all the way down. Some of these only have a single parameter, so those ones are obviously going to be formatted a little bit differently. But I'm trying to keep this code base commented as well, especially for interface level things like this. And while I'm doing this, I should point out that it's always a good idea to comment especially your public-facing interfaces, because you never really want the end user to have to sort of look at the code to figure out what's going on. A lot of people will say, oh, your code should be self-documenting, and there is something to that to an extent, but your code's naming conventions, such as your format, or such as your function names rather, your variable names, things like that, that shouldn't be the only form of documentation, right? Because that can't say everything that necessarily happens. And, you know, I guess to an extent, it is a matter of preference and opinion, but having worked on a number of projects with, small and large teams alike, I can definitively say that a well-commented code base is always nicer to work with than a code base that is not commented at all or quote-unquote self-documenting. Most of the self-documenting code bases always have sort of unexpected, undocumented things that happen under the hood. Even if they didn't when they were initially written, they definitely do at some point. So I'll jump off my soapbox, I guess, about that, but I just wanted to sort of discuss that real quick. All right, we're almost at the end here. Just a couple more of these to do. So one there, here. Oh, I just realized that this is named backend all the way through, so I'm actually going to have to do another find and replace. That's not a huge deal. Let's do this, and we will rename that parameter to plugin, so it's consistent. All right, cool. So that is it in terms of that. So I guess let's go ahead and move on to the actual the refactoring within the backend / plugin itself. So let's go to Vulkan backend H, and we'll just update this for now, so that we have this all the way down. Now I did remove the commenting from here, only because this is literally implementing that same interface, so all the comments would be the same. So in this case, I did remove the comments out of here because this is a plugin. I figured it was okay to do so. So all these guys here have the plugin. So I'm basically just going to go in and add these all the way down. And I'll need to do the same in the C file. So let's go ahead and just really quickly get this in here. All right. And this is definitely something that I kind of wish I had done much sooner before we collected quite such a large render interface, but you live and you learn, I guess. So just got a few more things here to finish up. Here's another one. And then I'll just need to flip over to backend and do the same thing. The backend C file, rather. So backend C. And let's see. So all of our private functions here are going to... Let's check these individually, actually. If there's anything in here that's using the sort of state pointer, then we're going to need to... what is it? No, context, actually, not state pointer. Where were we? Yeah, create module. So if there's anything using the context, which there is here, we're going to have to make sure to pass that through. So I guess we don't need to use the entire plugin for that. We could just pass the context for these private functions. So for anything that is not exposed to the front end, I think that's how we'll handle that. So these do take the plugin. I'm not 100% sure they need to, actually. So we have create command buffers. This takes in the backend, and then doesn't use it. I was wondering about that. Recreate swap chain. Takes in the backend, does not use it. Oh, yes it does, actually. Create command buffer. Oh wait, but that's just passing it to this one, which then doesn't use it. Okay, so that's fine. And then what were the other private ones here? So we have create module. Is that one of the ones? That does not take the backend. That only uses the context here, so that should be fine. And then we have Vulkan buffer, copy range internal. I don't think this one is going to need. Is this one going to need the backend or the context? Yes, it is. Okay, so all these private ones we can actually just we can refactor these to use the Vulkan context instead, which will allow us to get rid of the static Vulkan context. Oops. Right. This needs the Vulkan context, and this needs the Vulkan context. Okay. And of course now these are going to bleat because they're matching definitions here don't match. So let's go ahead and update that. Change these to be, use the arrow syntax. Right. This one uses it a whole lot. I suppose I could just do find and replace, find in lines, and then we'll do context dot, we'll replace it with context arrow. We have 7 matches, we'll replace those. Alright, so that should be it for that one. We have Vulkan context for this guy. And this is going to actually be the same thing. So I'm not going to do all that manually because that would suck. So let's do the same thing, but find within the selected lines. Looks like there's 20 of them. That'll get most of them. I did see, though, that there is... let's see. So this one actually is taking the address of context, which is wrong. We don't want to do that. I probably should check that previous function for that, too. We don't want to be passing the address of that because that's already a pointer. Okay. Right, so that one's good. Let's see. That one's good. That's taking the address of context. Don't want to do that. And we'll do context. Alright, looks like we got some chat. Good evening! Oh, Nightlone, hey, what's going on? You might be late, but you're here to bug me either way. That's fine. Let's see. I was watching the recording of your last stream and noticed your volume is a bit low. Yes. The volume was a bit low for the first, like, 5 minutes or so on the stream. So I don't know... I sound muted to you. Is it really that low? Okay. It's very, very low. Okay. Let me boost it a little bit then. Let me see if I can maybe up the gain or something. Alright. How's that? Is that a little better? I've got my gain like maxed at the moment. Okay. Alright, yeah. I'm still sorting out some audio issues that I was having, so I'll try and keep an eye out for that. Okay, cool. Quiet but not bad. Okay. Let me maybe move it a little bit closer. I feel like I'm like right on top of the microphone as it is, but maybe if I put it a little bit closer, it'll be better. Is that better? Is that a little bit better? That might be a little easier for you guys to hear. Yeah, that's better? Okay, cool. I will stick with that for now, and I'll try and remember to keep as close to it as I can. Okay. Alright, so where was I? I think I was just checking to make sure that I wasn't passing the address of context anywhere, which should be fine at this point. Alright, what were the other... You've seen streamers almost eat their mics. Yeah. I don't really want to be doing that. I'm going to see if I can find a way to like boost the volume of my mic. I don't know. I always feel like it's too hot, but maybe not. All right. So create module. Let's go to here. Wait a minute. Here it is. Okay. So I need Vulkan context here. And obviously I'll have to check context here. Context dot, whoops, crap. I hate that it tries to jump me to the next instance of it, which is not really what I want. Okay. Well, so this is just 2 of them. All right. So we've got that, and then let's see. Next one is going to be this guy. So we need a Vulkan context here, and then looks like I'm only using it in a good couple places here, which is good. Context dot, place that. Don't want to pass the address of context in either one of these places, but I think everything else is good. Why not? I'm sure you could take some more iron in your system. Yeah, I probably could, quite honestly. Except I think it's, whoops. I think this is mostly aluminum though, so I don't know if that would be, that'd be like eating deodorant, I guess. Okay. Alright, so that's it for that, in terms of the internal sort of functions that we have here. So, I guess the next thing I'm going to do is probably, I think I'm going to skip the allocator stuff for now, and I'll come back to that in a bit. I think some of this, is any of this actually using the context? I don't think it is. I think this is just a straight pipe through to the memory system. Yeah, so I don't think I'm going to have to do anything with the allocator. Sweet. There is eventually going to be more work coming for that, by the way. But with that, I digress. Let's go ahead and rename all of these things to also reflect that we are calling this a plugin now. So we'll do that. And then anything that is, I'm thinking actually anything that is like backend. Backend arrow is now going to be plugin arrow. Wow, it was only one thing in the entire, I'm surprised. Okay, I thought it was going to be way more than that. Yeah, it is, what the heck. Oh, I guess because I'm just passing, oh, so this is going to have to be, all right, so the next step of this is actually, before I can actually fix this here, I have to add to our plugin structure the Vulkan context, or at least something to hold the Vulkan context, because remember the plugin itself does not know about the internal context. So yeah, that's actually going to wind up being the next step of all this. So let me see. Let me just go to that structure. Is your context a global variable in the file? It is at the moment. It's going to be going away. I'm getting rid of that. So that's what I'm doing right now is I'm eliminating all of the static data or the static variables within eventually the entire engine, so that I can hot reload various aspects of it. I was initially going to go with a different design, which is why I did that in the first place, but I eventually decided against it, and I'm going this way instead. So what I'm going to do is, I think I'm going to put it before the function pointers. I'm going to put U64 internal data size and a void pointer internal, do I want to call it internal data or internal context? I guess I could call it. And so this is going to be the specific the plugin specific renderer context, I guess I could say. And this is just going to be the size of the plugin specific renderer context. And then basically what we'll do is we'll just cold cast that internally. So when I go to the backend to initialize it, before I do anything else, in fact, let me just completely break the entire thing by getting rid of this so that I know exactly where everything is busted. I was using the context somewhere. Okay. So it's gotta probably be the first thing that I do before I do anything else, is say plugin internal context. Actually, let me do the internal data size. That should be internal context size, not data. Context. Yep, that should be good. Okay. So internal context size equals size of Vulkan context. Right? And then plugin internal context equals kallocate. Wonder if I should do that aligned. I'm not going to worry about it for now. If it causes a problem, I'll do it. So I'll say plugin internal context size for the size, mem tag renderer for the tag. Okay, so now we have our internal context object. What we're going to do every time is we're basically going to just cold cast the context. So we can say Vulkan context equals, and we're just going to cast the plugin internal context. And now we have a context object to actually work with. So in this case, I can come through here and just replace all of the context instances, which there are many. I'm going to have to do probably a find to just make sure that I get all of the things that are just passing the context itself. But so I'll say context dot and change it to context arrow. Oh, did it deselect my whole thing? Dang it. I hate that it does that. There we go. So inside of that, we will replace all of those. Okay. So that is it for that. This is also going to need to take in a context. So we'll say Vulkan context. And instead of passing the address of context, we're just going to use context directly since it's a pointer. Well, time for me to disappear. Have fun breaking things. Yes, breaking things is what I do best, at least when I'm refactoring. Okay, so what we are going to do next is, I guess, let me search for context, address of context followed by a parenthesis, because those all should be just passing those through as a pointer, not the address of it, because we don't want to take the address of the pointer. That would be bad. So we can say context here for that one. What is still complaining up here? I thought we got everything up here. Must have missed something. Oh, here we go. So create Vulkan allocator. That is, why is that bleating? Oh, because it needs context added to it. Okay. All right. Next, we will basically do the same thing for shutdown. So this is going to be, you know what, where was that cold cast line? I'm just going to copy that actually, because that is going to be used a lot. So right here. Now we have context. Now we need to basically do the same thing to shut down everything that we have initialized. So I'm going to find and replace on that within lines, place context dot with context arrow. And let's just double check to make sure we're not doing anything stupid in here. In fact, I'm probably just going to run that find one more time at the very end. Okay, so that's that. The onResize, that's just going to be a simple addition there. What do we have? We have that. So we're just using that directly. The begin frame is going to be pretty much the same deal. So context dot, then highlighted lines. We will replace that. This takes context. And that should be mostly good for this. Why is this bleating about this? Extra text after expected end of number. What? UI64, isn't that? Oh, because it probably wants it to be ULL. Pile's fine though. I think, was it Visual Studio that likes it this way and then GCC that likes it the other way? I can't remember which one is which. Regardless, it builds fine. I'm not going to worry about it for now. Okay. So I guess the next thing to do is to go through and update all of the rest of the functions with, I guess I'll do the plugin addition first for all the functions. So we've already got it at that function. So this one needs it. That one needs it. That one needs it. There. Unfortunately, there's no real safe way for me to do this in an automated way. Yeah, that does need context as well, so I gotta do it there. That's private. I've already done that one. And this one's already done. Okay, so create, destroy. Channel count to format, that doesn't need it. I'll create a writable texture that uses the context, so that'll need it. Basically anything that is exposed to the front end is going to need it. And there's going to be some of these that I'm going to have to pass it in sub-function calls as well. But for now, I'm just worried about hitting the top level stuff, and I'll come back and hit these other ones afterwards. Unfortunately, it means I'm going to have to make 2 passes in this file, but it is what it is. I'll probably just go through and do all of these first, and then I'll just fix the functions one by one. Okay, that's a big one. So we got our bind globals, our bind instance, apply globals, apply instance. Convert repeat type. I actually don't think I need to do it there. Yeah, I don't need that either. That one needs it. In fact, I might just find and replace the whole file on these context dots and then just go back and fix whatever I have to fix after that manually. That's probably going to be safe enough to go ahead and do. Okay, so that's create module. We've already done that one. So here's the render pass create. Sets all that stuff up. Render pass destroy. Render target create. Render target destroy. And I think this will also make it a lot easier when we go to set up other renderer backends. So like when we get ready to do DirectX, which I'm hoping to actually do sometime this year, actually. Then basically all we're going to have to do is fill in an interface, essentially. And that should at least solidify things in terms of how our sort of API is set up here. Should, you know, kind of confirm that we're going in the right direction. All right. Yeah, so DirectX is one of them. I want to get a I should say Direct 3D. I don't plan on using much of the other stuff that comes with DirectX. I might implement an audio plugin using it. I haven't really decided yet. But at least Direct 3D is something that I want to get done sometime in the somewhat near future. All right, I'm actually just going to find and replace the whole file on context dots, hoping that that will get rid of a lot of these problems as well. Find memory index did need the plugin. Why is this bleating? Incompatible with, oh, because I put the derp. I think I told it to, whoops. Yeah, I told it to use the plugin here, and I actually need to use the, oh, the Vulkan context, which I already did. Why did I do that? Okay. All right, so we'll start here at, was this begin frame? That I'll ignore. These, I believe, need the plugin. So we'll pass that. That should satisfy that. Did we miss something else here? Oh, no, it's a UINT 64 max, okay. Okay, so we don't have context here because we're going to have to copy our cold cast. So that's going to be the next thing that we're going to have to add to a lot of these functions. So that'll be right here, and that'll probably fix most of the errors, if not all. Yep. Okay, so we'll do the same thing here. That fixes that. Fix that. Render review port set. This just needs the plugin to be passed. Okay, so we already have the plugin here, so we just need the cold cast. Let's see. There's not much content about DirectX 12 on the webs. No, there is not. It is something that, quite honestly, I've not messed with DirectX 12 a lot, but what I'm considering doing with that is kind of learning it as I implement it and part of the game engine to sort of go over how I would approach learning a new graphics API and implementing it. Suggest that you take a break on the graphics stuff and focus more on other systems like physics and scenes. So yes, that is going to be a priority here soon because I can't really move too much further without having scenes because it makes it very tedious to sort of unload things and be able to switch scenes or what's loaded and what's not. So before I hit DirectX 12 or any of that, there's going to be a lot of work around scenes, around loading and unloading. I might get to physics. I haven't really decided if I want to do that yet, but audio is like another one. ECS is something that I'm considering doing as well. Mini engine is a good source for DirectX 12. Okay, I will bear that in mind. So yeah, like I said, I haven't really messed with DirectX 12 a lot. So I was initially considering like learning it offline and then coming and doing it here, but I think there might be more value whenever I get to around to doing that, to sort of learning it on stream as I'm sort of implementing it at the same time, because maybe it'll kind of give insight into how you might approach learning something like that. I don't know if that's going to be useful or not, but it might be. Okay. So let me just finish going through here and putting in all of my cold casts. Let's see, that's already done. That's already done. So we've just got to add this to the rest of these. There's one of those buggers right there. I'll catch that one right away. Texture resize. So, incidentally, while I'm doing this refactoring, one thing I can kind of quickly talk about. So, there are a lot of ways that you could do this in a more automated fashion. You could use, fancy regular expressions to try and parse things out. And you could, try using some of the refactoring tools that come with Visual Studio or whatever tool it is you're using. But I like this sort of manual approach because this lets me get into each individual function and sort of investigate what all is getting changed, so I can kind of have an idea of what might break. And one of the quickest ways to do that is to remove a variable that is widely used, or change its type or something like that, to immediately expose what kind of changes or what kind of breakage is going to happen. Let's see, this doesn't even really need that, but I'm going to add it anyways in case I need it on a different backend. So we'll go ahead and, oops, actually this doesn't need it either, does it? Nope. Okay, but again, I'll leave it in the interface. Personally, what I like about programming videos, live streams, is the experience. To experience the thought process of the developer. Yeah, that's kind of why I switched to this, because this actually started off as a video series on YouTube where everything was sort of pre-planned and kind of scripted ahead of time. And not only was that taking a lot of time away from actual development stuff, but I felt like it was kind of doing a little bit of a disservice, because I feel like it's very easy to say, okay, here's what we're going to do, and here is, here's the code for that, right? And I've already kind of prepared this ahead of time, and this is the way that this works. But I feel like a lot of tutorials and video series and stuff don't really go into the why or the decision-making process when doing things. And the more I thought about it, the more I just kind of came to the conclusion that a live stream just kind of naturally lends itself to that. And so, aside from the occasional fix or something that I have to do sort of offline, I'm going to try and keep most of this stuff on stream going forward. That does actually remind me, I do have a couple things that I have checked into some feature branches for the last video, actually, that I need to go over. So I do need to step into that really quickly. But I'm going to finish this set of changes first, and then I'll go back to that. All right, so we're almost here at the bottom. And I know we're going to have a decent amount of errors left, but think most of them will have been knocked out already just by adding all of this in. Oops, is that? Yeah, that does need it. Okay. Oh wait, this is copy internal, that's already there. Vulkan buffer copy range, that needs to be there. Actually, do we use context in here? We don't, I don't think. No. Yes, we will. This needs context right there. All right, so this needs it. Whoops. Okay, so we've gone through the whole file, and it looks like we've clobbered most of the errors, but this is going to be a massive change set here. But that's okay. It's for the better. Okay, so I can ignore those two. So those are the uint64 max issues. I do need to sort out why IntelliSense is flipping out over that, but it's not important right now. All right, so what's the next issue that is in line here? Oh, right. I need to search for everything that is either context by itself, right? So that should just be that, or in a list, which I have a suspicion there's several of these. These I'm going to do individually. So anywhere I'm passing context by itself, we don't want to be passing the address of context anymore. We just want to be passing context. Okay. No, there's a bunch of these. That's what I kind of thought. Yeah. That would be a nasty bug because that would be potentially very hard to spot. So we're almost done with that. Okay, so that's done with that. Knocked out a whole bunch of errors there as well. And the rest of these, I suspect, are probably going to be where we're calling one of these functions that now requires either the plugin or the context, and we're just not passing it. Let's see, like this one, for example. This requires the plugin. Okay, so a little bit further down. Let's see, where is the next? Right, this one. So this is this requires the plugin. So we'll pass that along. And a little bit further down, there's probably another one here somewhere. This requires the plugin. All right. Slowly getting rid of all these reds over here. Okay. So this just requires the buffer. That's not a big deal. I feel like there's something right around here, though, that probably needs it. Vulkan buffer draw, that's going to require the plugin. So is this. Okay. Shader create. I think that one's fine, actually. A little bit further down. Let's see, I feel like there's got to be one here somewhere. So this requires the plugin. Render buffer destroy, that's just the, that doesn't require anything, okay. Create module requires the context, so we need to pass that. All right, a little further down. Let's see. So this Vulkan buffer map memory requires the plugin. And now we can move down to this next guy here. Oh, I actually pasted this somewhere and I didn't need it, because create module already has context. And that does not require the plugin. So that's good. Let's see. So this is Vulkan buffer copy range internal. So this requires context, which we should already have. Yep. All right, a little further down. We're getting there. We're almost there. Let's see. So is host coherent requires the plugin, which we already have here. So that's good. Device is local, that requires the plugin. Is host visible requires the plugin. All right. I feel like we've missed one here. It looks like we've missed one. Oh, the copy range requires the plugin. All right. Last function here, we just need to pass the plugin here and here again. And the load range requires the plugin. The copy range requires the plugin. All right. So I believe the only other errors that we have, let's see, what is this one though? What is this bleating about? We did miss one. This requires the plugin here. And I think these other ones are just it bleating about the uint64 max. So that is, yeah, that's that bottom one. And then there's that one, and it looks like there might be one more up here somewhere. Yep, right there. Okay, so I'm not going to worry about those for right now. And what this is going to do is it's basically going to blow up the front end. So, whoops, did I mess up something in the renderer types? I did. Forgot to remove a comma. All right. Yes. So now the front end is blowing up, which is actually what I expected to happen. So, something I just thought of. Vulkan backend. One more change we need to make in the backend. So in initialize, we are performing an allocation here of the internal context. We were not freeing that in the shutdown. So we need to make sure to do that. And that's going to come all the way here at the end. So right here, we'll say if plugin internal context, right? And we'll just do, move this down here, set that to 0, and then we'll say k-free. And we need to move this block here. So it's block size memory tag. Okay. That way we don't have a leak there. Technically speaking, this is during shutdown, so it's not really that important, I guess, but I don't like to leak memory if we don't have to. Even during shutdown, unless it's really going to make things take a long time. Okay, so let's go back to the front end, because it is going to be full of errors now, because it is going to be expecting us to pass the plugin around. So, in this case, the state pointer in the front end is still static. And for now, I'm going to leave it as static. I'm going to sort of change one of these things at a time. So since I've already done the backend / plugin, this time around, I'm going to leave this for right now. But this also is going to be moved to a system state call in order to get its state. But for right now, we'll stick with state pointer, and that'll be an easy refactor when we're done. Okay, so basically what we're going to wind up doing is anywhere where we're reaching out to the backend, which is now called the plugin, we are going to have to pass along the plugin itself. So we need state pointer plugin, and in this case, we're taking a pointer to that plugin. And so the system state actually owns the plugin, so we're actually going to have to pass the address of the plugin. And so we're basically going to need this, like basically virtually everywhere. So I'm going to go ahead and pass that there, and we're basically just going to solve these one at a time. All right. Looks like we missed something here. Why is that bleating about that? Oh, this is not going to update, is it? Until I build. Okay. IntelliSense is freaking out because of the amount of changes I'm making. TPT Sam, hello. Welcome to the stream. Welcome, welcome. So right now we are going through and we are removing static data from the render plugin. And to do that, we basically need to pass in the plugin from the front end, or at least a pointer to the plugin, so that we can extract the Vulkan context out of that. So the Vulkan context is now owned by our plugin, and it is responsible for managing that. So what I'm doing now is just basically gone through and refactored the plugin interface to take in a pointer to the plugin. And now I'm going through to the consumers of that interface and updating it to pass along that plugin. So for right now, I am utilizing static data on the front end. That eventually is going to be changing as well. And I should note that all of this is to facilitate hot reloading of that library. Now I do anticipate that there may be some issues with hot reloading the renderer. But this is going to be a change that we are going to be making in several places of the engine to be able to hot reload libraries and eventually assets, actually. So once we get to the point where we're going to write the hot reload code, we're actually going to do it in a generic way where it can be used by anything, not just libraries, but also our asset system. So whenever we load an asset, we'll be able to tell it, hey, watch for any file updates. And if we do get a file update, hot reload the asset and update our scene without us having to relaunch the entire thing. Now, I should mention that there obviously are caveats with hot reloading DLLs. There are certain scenarios where that's not going to work. So generally speaking, anything that is code or logic will generally hot reload fine. But anything that is a change in data or data layout or memory layout will be breaking and you'll have to reload completely. So there are limitations to it, but as long as you kind of keep that in mind as you're working, it shouldn't ever really be too big of a deal. And then I will also mention while I'm at it that if you have any questions, as I'm kind of going here, this is an interactive stream, so if you have any questions or comments, feel free to post them in the chat. I try to look at that from time to time and keep things interactive, right? I want this to be an interactive stream. So okay, so that looks like we built for the most part, but we had a couple of unused variables. So I put some cold casts in here in a couple places I didn't need to. So that was one of them. Looks like we have another one here. So let's get rid of that. And let's see. Find memory index. Oh, right, because this requires the renderer plugin because we need the context. So our function pointer there is not valid. So the context find memory index. Does that really need to be a function pointer? I don't know that it does. Oh, that's why. Okay. Because Vulkan image uses it too. Okay, well that's kind of... I probably eventually should move this code to be in the backend as well, in backend file. But I'm not going to do that right now. I'll leave it as a function pointer for right now. It's fine. So we need to add the plugin to the function pointer type as well. Which I guess I'll just add a comment here. Plugin a pointer to the renderer plugin instance, I guess. Whatever. Doesn't matter. Let's build. Why are you bleating? Oh, because now the function calls to it are going to be wrong, which makes sense because they now require the plugin. Right, so let's go ahead and add that. Pretty sure Vulkan image is now going to bleat about this. Yep. And it does not have the plugin. Okay. So this is taking the Vulkan context right now, which is really all we need for the sake of the image, but for the sake of the find memory index, wherever it may be. Let's see, we have the context here. But the problem is this is actually located on... Oh, wait a minute. This is... This is on the... Yeah, this is an interface level. I shouldn't do the plugin here. I should just do the Vulkan context. Take a pointer to that, and this is going to have to be struct because we are declaring this inside here. So this should actually be to the renderer context. I was going to say that seemed weird to me for some reason. So that already has that, which means this needs to be Vulkan context, right? And then we don't need this. And then the anywhere where we're calling that, all we're doing here is assigning. So this should just take context. Oops. Right. And then Vulkan image should just also pass along context. And that should fix it. If I didn't forget to update something. Vulkan context from i32. What is still using the renderer plugin? Conflicting types. Didn't I change that? Oh, that's the problem. Didn't change this one. Okay. Now we should be able to build. Okay. So with all that, let's just run. Make sure we haven't terribly broken anything. So we've got that. I'll go ahead and load up a scene. It looks like all of that is working. Yeah, so we should be good to go. And it looks like shutdown happened correctly as well. Okay. We've eliminated the static data out of the Vulkan backend. So that is good. That was a major thing that needed to be done. Now, the front end is also using a static state pointer, which we also need to resolve. And so the way that I am going to resolve that is going to be that I'm basically going to put add a getter to our systems manager. So systems manager .h. So we have when we register a system, we register a type that goes with it, right? And that type coincides with this. This internally, when we go ahead and register, points to, let me see, where is it? Points to the systems array, and it uses the type as the index into the array. So the advantage to having done it this way is I can now come in here and say, let's call it U16, systems manager, oh wait, that should be a void pointer. Systems manager get state, right? And now we can say U16 type. We're also going to need the systems. Are we going to need the systems manager state? No, we shouldn't need it for that, right? Right, so we should be able to go into systems manager C, go to the bottom here. Actually, let's not put it at the bottom because we have some internal functions here. So that's register. I'll put it right after register, or put it right there. And so this system does not have static data. So this is probably going to wind up being one of the only systems that is going to be required to. Because what I need to be able to do is I need to be able to call out to this systems manager to get the state for a particular type of system. And that will return a pointer to the system itself. However, in this case, I am relying on the state being passed in for everything else that the system does. Which has been fine up to this point. But we don't want to have to get the systems manager state from other systems that we are trying to get the state for, because that kind of sucks. API-wise, that kind of sucks. So I think probably what I'm going to do is this is going to be a bit of an anti-pattern to the way we're going to do things going forward, but in this case, I'm going to keep a copy of this guy. So I'm going to say static system state, and I'm going to say, I'm going to call this a little bit something different, gstate, right? And what I'll do is when we initialize this, which we're passing in, all right, all we're going to do is right before we register the known systems, we'll go ahead and say gstate equals state, right? And we're not, the idea here is to get rid of this in every other part of the system except this one. And I think that's going to be fine because I don't see us actually hot reloading the engine. I just don't see that being a thing. So if we ever do hot reload the engine, we'll have to rethink this, but I think the engine itself is just not going to be hot reloadable for right now. And I'm okay with living with that. So I'll say if gstate return gstate systems subtype, and then we'll say the state. So we'll just return that directly. Otherwise, we will return 0. And this will allow us to essentially get the state for any type of system from anywhere within the engine itself. I really don't like this, but I'll have to do some thinking on that. I'm going to put to do here. Find a way to have this not be static. I don't know that there is a way to have that not be static, but for now I'll live with it, because by biting the bullet here, I'll be able to get rid of it everywhere else, essentially. All right, so that means that we can go back to the front end, and we can go to our state pointer, and we can get rid of it. And what we'll do instead is we will come down here to include, was it under systems, or I think it was under core systems manager. So we'll include that. Speaking of which, I have some temporaries here. I don't think I'm actually using this anywhere. I don't think I'm using string anywhere in here, and I don't think I'm using the events either. I'm not. Okay, so let's get rid of this temporary code, because I don't think I'm using that anywhere in here anyway. Okay, so we got rid of our static state pointer, and what we're going to replace that with is, I'm going to get rid of this, and we'll go ahead and say render system state. We can't call it state, can we, here? I guess we'll call it state pointer here, but we'll rename it everywhere else. So systems manager get state, and in this case, it's going to be the system type renderer. Yeah, renderer. Okay. And so that will essentially give us the state object, and this is how we're going to retrieve it going forward, right? So it's just an indexed lookup into an array, so it's nice and fast, and it keeps us from having to use static data all over the place. So in this case, we're actually doing some stuff here that's kind of stupid. We should just be using the state itself, which is actually passed in directly to us. So let's actually do this instead. We'll call this typed state. Typed state. Actually, I guess we could just say state here, and then typed state, and move that there. Typed state plugin. Okay, so that's the shutdown for that. And basically, you know what? I think I'm going to stick with the state pointer, and I'll just do a mass rename on it. So I should be able to just basically come in here to every one of these functions and add the get to the state pointer here. And we should, at that point, be good to go. Now, some of these we could probably change the interface here. to just take in the render system state directly, because maybe it's somewhere like the engine that is kind of aware of exactly what it's calling and sort of has access to all these various states. And so in some cases it might actually make sense to just pass that in, but for right now I'm just going to kind of blanket do it this way, just to kind of get rid of everything for now and kind of switch over to non-static data. All right, we're almost there. So do any of you guys have any questions on what we're doing? Like I said, I want to keep this sort of an interactive stream. So if you guys have any questions, feel free to ask them, and I will field them to the best of my ability. So we need a state pointer for this one. All right, almost done. And we're actually doing pretty good on time so far. So I'm happy with that. All right, and the next thing we're actually going to start to look at is actually loading this properly as a loading the plugin dynamically. So I guess I could sort of start to talk about that now. Basically, what we've been doing up to this point is hard linking the DLL into, in our case, the game, and loading the plugin that way. And that's all well and good, but it's not very dynamic, right? You have no questions, but you're enjoying the stream. Great, that's awesome to hear. That's awesome. I'm glad you're enjoying it. So we aren't really dynamically loading the DLL right now. And I say DLL because we're on Windows right now, right? But it's the same kind of concept between all the OSs. And so what we're going to want to do is change this over to actually dynamically load that. And we're going to want to hook into various functions dynamically. So that way, no matter what we're actually, what library we're loading, all we have to do is worry about meeting a specific interface and grabbing function pointers to that interface. And that way, whenever we dynamically load, we can also dynamically unload, get rid of those function pointers, load a new version of the library, and reload those function pointers. And so that's kind of how that's going to wind up working out. Let's see. So I'm going to actually do a clean really quickly, and I want to do a build, just to make sure that everything builds correctly from scratch. Okay, so it looks like it built. So let's go ahead and just run it and make sure we didn't break anything. And we did. So that's cool. We got a null pointer. Why did we get a null pointer? Oh, because we have So let's take a look at our call stack here. I think I know what the problem is. But so we call the initialize. Yep. But at this point, we don't actually have the entry set in the array, right? So we call initialize here, and then the function call here is getting the state, which we haven't actually set yet. But we do have a state. It's just not been set in here. So actually, all this requires is a cold cast of state. So that's a whoopsie on my part. So let's reload again. And it looks like we have another issue. So we have a null pointer here again. But why though? Right. Okay, so the plugin initialize calls into this is initialize, I think, right? Yes. So it right. Okay. So the issue here. Oh, wait a minute. Did that not? Yeah. Okay. So it's calling back to the front end, and the front end is looking for a state pointer that it doesn't yet have. So I think what actually needs to happen, our fix from before is still good, but I think what actually needs to happen is this needs to be set earlier, because there are going to be systems that are going to do this, that are going to sort of have to call back and acquire the state. And so I think in our case, it's okay to do the first call to the initialize to get the actual size requirement. And then we go ahead and we set up the state here. So I think once we've done that, it's okay to do this. And then we assign this assuming that this second initialize is going to work. And I think these start off basically as, you know what, this should probably be zeroed out just to be safe. And I'm thinking, just to be safe here as well, if we fail, we are going to K0 memory, right? We're going to take the address of state systems type, and that's going to be the size of K system, right? We're just going to zero out that memory if that happens to fail. And since this is a linear allocation, we can't reclaim the memory there. But I think that's fine. I'm not really too worried about that. So that should fix our issue. And it looks like we are not good. Okay, so now what is failing? So T is null. So I might have missed something here along the way. Let's see. Shader apply. Did we get a state pointer? We did. Okay. Let's see. So what is the... So this texture map is obviously failed. Internal. There's probably an instance here of something that is just not quite right. Render a draw frame. So this is an interesting issue. So we're passing through the shaders. Current shader ID is 0. Which is going to be this guy. So that's the skybox shader. That looks correct. Global texture maps. Is that what it's hanging up on? I don't think it was the global ones, was it? No, it's an instance state. Instance states, instance ID is 0, so we'll take a look at 0 instance texture maps. So that's interesting. It looks like like the texture isn't. So the texture isn't available. I wonder why that is. So I have a feeling it's probably in our startup logic somewhere where we're retrieving the state but not getting it properly. Okay. Let's take a look at the front end. And when we create a texture, I wonder if this is, aha, I see the problem, I think. So this is taking the plugin. No, it should have the address of that. Right? Let's relaunch. So it looks like we have all of this set up. So let's go into the back end here. The context looks like it's set up correctly. I don't see anything wrong there. So here we have the texture. This actually looks like it's... Oh, okay, this is creating the default texture. Actually, I can skip that one. This is the default diffuse. I can skip that one. I think I can skip like the next three. Normal. Okay. Skybox. So this is the one that we want. That I suspect something is just not being done right. So texture type cube, channel count 4. Okay, so it looks like all of this is correct minus the ID. So we have an image here. Vulkan image create. I don't think that's the issue. We write the data to it. And texture generation plus plus, that should actually reset that to 1. 2 rather, okay, I guess it was already 1. Free the pixels. Load cube textures. That all seems correct. See, pointer registered textures. That's interesting. So the ID here is, oh, the ID is 12. Okay, so let's actually take a look at this. Yep, that looks correct. It's got the name and everything. Okay. So I don't think it's that. Okay. So that looks like it's done the thing correctly. We have cube map here. All right. So this is on the skybox itself. Okay. So this should be the texture maps. Yeah, so the texture map here at least has all the filters set up, the texture itself set up. So we'll acquire the instance resources, passing along the maps. We'll see if we can find where this falls apart. If gstate, we do have that. The type is renderer, and we pass the state back. Okay, cold cast that. It looks like it has found. Yep, so that all looks legit here. Okay, so it's finding that correctly. Pass the address of plugin. So the plugin here still looks correct, more or less. Okay, so we go ahead and grab the context. Okay, that all looks correct so far. So I think we're getting the state data correctly. Let's see. Instance states. Okay, so it's the first one. Okay, so the instance ID is 0. That's convenient. So the instance state, instance texture maps. So this is ultimately what's not being set. So the instance texture count is 1. The binding index is 0, so that's fine. We allocate an array for texture maps. That was fine, because it was able to load the first one. We go ahead and we say get default texture. And then we assign, we copy the memory, let's see, times texture count, instance texture maps. Right. Okay, so this will be zeroed out at this point. So we're copying the instance texture maps. We're copying into it the maps that we have passed here, which does have a texture reference. So that should actually be valid at that point. Yep. Okay. The instance ID here is 0. So that should be fine. Okay. All right. So we do have a texture, so we didn't need to do that. This is descriptor states. I don't think any of the rest of this matters. Okay, so let's step out of this function. And we've acquired the resources, created the skybox. All right, so let's, I guess, continue. We have a bunch of other textures being created. Here are some of our tests. Okay. Let's see. Bind globals. Oh, interesting. Now it's saying the skybox data. Now it's saying the skybox data is wrong, which, why would that be wrong? View and packet. render target index 0. Okay, so it's still the packet extended data doesn't seem to be coming out right. So we have the skybox data, which is here, and that contains rubbish. So evidently we have foobarred somewhere here in one of our calls. So let's see if we can figure out where this rubbish is coming from. Attachment index, so that seems to work at that level. This just takes the view, which I think is nothing but a pointer itself, right? Yep. So nothing here has changed. The view count is 4. So why is it not pulling the skybox data correctly? I wonder if when we are building the packet, something is wrong there. Let me clean and rebuild just for sanity's sake real quick. I am fairly sure that we're probably like passing the address of a pointer or something stupid somewhere. I'm going to undo this because we validated that that was working correctly. This is failing in a different place every single time, which is interesting. Whoa, look at that instance ID. Bind instance. It's always in the skybox call, but render view system. Did we mess up something in the systems manager? I don't think we did, but let's verify. So the G state is equal to the state. Where is this called from? Okay, so we pass through that state here. State systems allocator. All we do is we create this. Set the G state here, which is literally the same thing as this, so I don't think it's that. It's interesting to me that it fails in a different place every single time. Bind instance. Interesting, interesting, interesting. All right. I had to curse myself by saying I was making good progress or making good time. When am I going to learn to never say that? Okay. So I guess the thing to do is let's just take a quick look at some of the changes we've made. It gets rid of some of this stuff. All right. So this just takes the, oops, that should be context. So that just takes the context. So that's a simple change. Vulkan image just passes through the context there. I think that's the only change because we already had context here. So that's the only change there. The backend, I think the only thing that we did was we added the plugin to a lot of these functions. Yep. That's basically it there. Here we added the context. So I don't think that's going to be an issue. Most of these are just changing syntax, right? So there's a lot of noise in this file, but there's not actually a whole crazy amount of stuff that's changed. Text instance, right? Okay, that should be fine. I still think, though, it's probably something where I am passing like the address of context where I shouldn't be. Create command buffers, that takes pointer automatically by itself. Render buffer create. Why doesn't that one take? Oh, right, it does. Okay. So this is actually still an initialize. Okay, so that should still be fine. Render buffer bind. Let me do a address of context, just so that I can see everywhere that that's actually used. Do we have any of them like this or like that? No. Just so that I can see those highlighted. All right, so I don't see so far anything that looks wrong. Most of these are just syntax changes. This definitely feels like a stupid error I made somewhere. When I find it, I'm going to be super annoyed. Recreate swap changes takes the context. Image index. These take the plugin, right? Yep. Take the plugin as is. Oh, I guess I could search for that too, actually. Am I passing the address of plugin anywhere? No, I'm not. All right. I really don't see anything in here that looks wrong so far. And I think the only thing that we did in the front end. Wait a minute, did it work before we changed the front end? I think it did. I think it worked just fine when we were doing it using the static data in the front end. You know what, let me try something. So let's do git stash engine source renderer frontend.c. Let's stash that guy. Push, I think, is what I have to have. Is it push? I can never remember the syntax for this. Yeah. I think that only pushed that one. Yeah, so let's clean and rebuild this. Let me try it without this static change here on the front end. Right. That did have some changes I needed, actually. Git stash pop. How do I want to do this? So I think probably, I guess I could just risk it and hold Control Z. I'm going to copy this into a new buffer real quick just to be sure. And then in render front end, I'm just going to Control Z this all the way back up. All the way back up. Do we have the state pointer yet? Okay. Let's try this. Because I don't remember if this was where it all went wonky or not. Okay, so it worked without my updates in the front end. So that is where we foobarred something. Why are you bleating? Shut down known systems. What? Oh, that may have broken something else? State systems. Memory. Oh, okay. I guess. Oh, that's interesting. Memory shutdown is not right, but okay, that's fine. Okay, so that tells me that something I did here in the front end is what messed things up. So let's redo all these changes. And have a look at what all has changed in the front end. Because it worked until this. So here all we do is a cold cast of the state. And it just does the thing. That should be fine. I don't see anything wrong with that. The shutdown, that is not the issue. Render run resized. So that is just getting the state. So I think all this is we're just literally going through and getting, you know what? Let me do a separate commit on this. Because we had it working before this. So let me roll this back one more time. Right. So that way I've got a sane place to start, right? And I can keep these change sets separate from one another. So get status. What branch are we on? Feature plugins. Yeah, I guess we could do that. Let's do a new branch though. We'll do feature, or actually I guess we'll do Vulkan static removal. We'll do a add get commit removed Vulkan static data from Vulkan plugin. Okay, now we will redo this so that we can actually see those changes in isolation. I hate doing it this way, but sometimes this is the only way to sort of figure out what's going on. So we added our systems manager, we removed these temporary things. We have a cold cast there of the state, that's fine. Other than that, it looks like we just added calls to get the state, and we're just cold casting that. And I think that's all we're doing all the way down. Right? Just using the system type renderer. So that's interesting. Yeah, that's literally all we added. And that seems to have broken it somehow. That is very interesting to say the least. And it might be indicative of some sort of memory issue that we weren't aware of. Render a system state. So our memory requirement here, we're standing up enough memory for this. What all is in here? Nothing crazy, just a renderer plugin. The renderer plugin itself has a bunch of function pointers. And these guys. So again, nothing crazy. But somehow switching to use the non-static pointer and using the actual state that we allocated is foobarring things, which is not great. I guess we could check to see real quick if the systems manager is registering the type correctly. So systems manager register, the renderer, render system initialize, shut down, render system config. So yeah, that is correct. Let me just verify that this is not going crazy here. So we initialize to get the state size. We go ahead and allocate for that state. Right, yep, okay. And then we set the system here. You know what? Why are we doing this, actually? We probably shouldn't even be doing this. Right? We probably should be let's say if initialize, right? Then we'll say state systems type dot initialize equals initialize. Right, and then we can go ahead and call state systems type initialize. And then we can pass it the state size. And then set the state on that. Get rid of this. Set the state size. Actually, you know what? This is kind of stupid. We shouldn't be indexing this many times either, actually. Let's do k system sys equals the address of this, right? Then we can say this and not have to keep indexing into that. So we'll call initialize after we set it. We will pass the system state, or the state size rather. Then we'll set the state according to the state size. And then we'll call that system again, initialize, passing the state size and the system state. And then I guess what we could do here is just pass system. I wonder if that was something, if that was interfering with it somehow. All right, let's build. And we'll run, and we are still getting some really strange errors, which means that we likely have some sort of corruption. Awesome. Because I can't see why this set of changes would cause that type of an issue. Because there's really nothing here that should be doing that. Oh, you know what? We're just setting initialize here. We should probably also... we didn't actually set up the other calls either. Yeah, we'll have to come down here. If initialize. Right, okay. We also need to set up system shutdown equals shutdown and system update equals update. And I think, was there anything else we needed to set? No. Those actually weren't set. I don't think that's the problem, but we do need to make sure that those things are actually set. Yeah. Something funky is going on here. Okay. Well, unfortunately, we have reached the end of the stream time for today. So I'm going to have to call it here for right now. And we're going to have to pick this up in the next stream. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to check this code in to a branch. And we'll have to pick this up on the next round. Before I go, though, I do want to kind of quickly go over one thing, though. So let me pull up the repo real quick. Let's see, I want a new window. All right. There are 2 pull requests that I'm putting in. And I'm not going to do this on stream because I'm not logged in here, but basically we have this Vulkan plugin for Linux and Vulkan plugin for the Mac OS. And these are the exact same changes that we made in the stream for Windows. We've just gone ahead and done it for these platforms as well. So this is the exact same set of changes. It's just got all the specific handle stuff for the given platform. So one of these is for Linux, the other is for Mac OS. So I'm going to go ahead and merge these in off camera, but I did want to bring up that these things are done, and by the time this finishes up, these will be merged in. So anyway, that's going to do it for this time. Unfortunately, I was hoping to have this up and running, but it seems that we've got some sort of memory issue going on that we need to resolve. So anyway, that's going to do it for this time. So we'll pick this up in the next stream. Thank you guys so much for coming in, joining me here on the stream and interacting. It's great to have you guys here. If you like this series, please toss me a follow on Twitch or subscribe on YouTube and a thumbs up on the video there, and leave a question or comment in YouTube for when I upload this there. And yeah, I'll catch you guys on the next stream. See ya.